As Jim Rickards sat in his dimly lit office, the weight of the world seemed to bear down on him. He had spent countless hours poring over economic data, analyzing trends, and consulting with experts in the field. And yet, despite all his efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with the global economy. According to Rickards, the sign of trouble had been present since the 2007 financial crisis, but while many people had assumed that the world had bounced back from that recession, Rickards saw things differently. He believed that the global economy had been in a depression for more than a decade, and that this depression was likely to continue indefinitely. That is why on InvestWise we provide you with all of the information you need to be on time with your investments. If you find it useful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Rickards believed that the exact meaning of a recession didn't matter. While 2 quarters of decreasing GDP may indicate a recession, it didn't fully show the severity of the issue. Rather, Rickards claimed that a depression was when there was a prolonged period of reduced growth in comparison to what is expected. And based on this idea, the world was in a very bad state. As he looked out the window at the bustling city below, Rickards couldn't help but draw comparisons to Japan. There, a depression lasted for 3 long decades, and many economists had predicted that the country would never fully recover. Was the US in a similar situation? Rickards feared that it was. But what could be done to turn things around? That was the question that haunted Rickards day and night. He had some ideas, of course. He believed that central banks needed to be more proactive in their monetary policies, and that governments needed to invest more in infrastructure and education. But would those measures be enough, or was it already too late? As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Rickards became increasingly obsessed with the state of the global economy. He scoured economic reports, attended conferences, and engaged in heated debates with his colleagues. And yet, despite all his efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that something catastrophic was looming on the horizon. The world seemed to hold its breath as Rickards continued to sound the alarm. Some people dismissed his views as overly pessimistic, while others accused him of fear-mongering. But for those who listened closely to his words, a sense of unease couldn't be ignored. As the months turned into years, Rickards' reputation as an economic seer continued to grow. People around the world began to pay attention to his dire warnings, and governments and central banks began to take his advice more seriously. But even as the global economy began to shift in response to Rickards' insights, the question remained. Would it be enough to stave off the looming crisis, or was the world already hurling towards an economic catastrophe that no one could predict or prevent? According to Rickards, one of the key problems with the current economic situation is that people misunderstand what depression is. Many people assume that a depression is simply a prolonged recession or a period of negative growth. However, Rickards argued that depression is much more than that. It is a sustained period of below-trend growth without any clear tendency to return to trend. This is why, in his view, the current situation is so concerning. The Federal Reserve is trying to raise interest rates to get the economy back to normal, but this tightening policy may cause the recession the Fed is trying to avoid. Rickards is critical of the Fed's approach, arguing that it is based on flawed assumptions and may actually make the situation worse. He suggests that a more nuanced and flexible approach is needed, one that considers the complex and unpredictable nature of the global economy. What is James Rickards' critique of the Federal Reserve's approach to raising interest rates, and what alternative approach does he suggest for addressing the unpredictable nature of the global economy? The global economy has faced various unexpected events, demonstrating the limitations of traditional economic forecasting models, the assumptions on which these models rely, such as the predictability and stability of the economy, the rationality of market participants, and the reliability of historic data, have frequently been proven wrong. As a result, experts like James Rickards have called for a new approach that considers the complexity and interdependence of the global economic system. Rickards argues that a more comprehensive and dynamic approach to economic forecasting is needed. Such an approach should consider various factors that influence the economy, including geopolitical tensions, technological innovations, social and cultural trends, and economic indicators like inflation rates and GDP growth. By considering these various factors, the approach would be better equipped to predict the impact of unexpected events and identify emerging trends that could shape the future. To illustrate the limitations of traditional forecasting models, Rickards points out that they cannot fully account for unexpected events such as natural disasters, political upheavals, or technological innovations that can profoundly impact the economy. In contrast, a more holistic approach that recognizes the complexity and interconnectedness of the global economy would be better suited to anticipate these unforeseen events. To address these challenges, Rickards proposes alternative forecasting models, such as complexity theory and scenario analysis. Complexity theory considers the economy as a complex system made up of many interconnected parts. It identifies patterns and feedback loops that can amplify or mitigate the effects of small changes in one part of the system. Scenario analysis, on the other hand, involves developing multiple possible scenarios for the economy's future based on different assumptions and variables. By considering a range of potential outcomes, scenario analysis can help decision-makers prepare for various possibilities and be better equipped to respond to unexpected events. According to Rickards, financial panics are a distinct category of economic crisis, and they are different from recessions and depressions. They are caused by exponential functions of scale, which refer to the complex and unpredictable interactions between various financial systems and institutions. Due to the interconnectedness of these systems, a failure in one part of the financial system can quickly spread and lead to a panic in other parts. This means that financial panics are difficult to predict and even more challenging to prevent. Despite the challenges of dealing with financial panics, Rickards believe that there are steps that can be taken to minimize their impact. For example, he suggests that countries should strengthen their local economies. This involves investing in local businesses and infrastructure, reducing reliance on global trade and finance, and promoting self-sufficiency. By doing so, countries can become more resilient to external shocks and better able to weather economic downturns. In addition, Rickards argues that central banks and governments should be prepared to take bold action during times of crises. This may include cutting interest rates, injecting liquidity into financial markets, and supporting struggling businesses and households. However, he warns that these measures should be used judiciously and cautiously, as excessive intervention can lead to unintended consequences and further destabilize the economy. What crisis response measures does James Rickards recommend? Jim Rickards' views on the global economy and the need for a new approach to economic forecasting and policy making are quite thought-provoking. In today's rapidly changing and unpredictable world, it is clear that traditional economic models and assumptions are no longer sufficient to accurately predict economic outcomes. Rickards' call for a more comprehensive and dynamic approach to economic forecasting, one that considers a wide range of factors, including geopolitical tensions, technological innovations, and social and cultural trends, is a step in the right direction. By taking a more nuanced and holistic view of the economy, we can better understand the interdependencies and complexities that influence it and prepare ourselves for unexpected events. Moreover, Rickards' suggestion that financial panic are a distinct category of economic crises, requiring different policy responses, is also an important insight. As he points out, financial panics are caused by the exponential functions of scale, which makes them difficult to predict and even harder to prevent. However, by promoting local resilience and preparedness, investing in local businesses and infrastructure, and reducing reliance on global trade and finance, we can minimize the impact of these panics and build more sustainable and resilient economies. Jim Rickards' views on the current state of the global economy and his call for a new approach to economic forecasting and policy making are timely and challenging. By taking into account the complexity and unpredictability of the global economy, we can better prepare ourselves for unexpected events and build a more resilient and sustainable economy for the future. If you loved this video, subscribe, leave a like, and watch this one too.